This year, most Americans set aside some time to discuss how the first 250 years of our history has shaped our nation into what it is today in 2026. In this video, I'm going to talk about what events may occur in the next few decades and centuries that will shape America into what it may be in 2276. The first issue I'm going to start off with is basically existential threats to not just Americans but the human race. The nuclear age was the first time that humanity had to worry about the prospect that it alone may be the primary reason for the end of civilization as we know it. This power simply didn't exist during the writing of our nation's founding documents. Those threats have only multiplied. Biological and chemical agents produced in labs used by bad actors could potentially go horribly wrong. Human civilization's ability to manipulate the climate, whether they want to or not, poses a major risk to humanity's future. The most recent risk to emerge, and that has attracted the most headlines as of late, is artificial intelligence. I think these existential threats will only grow and multiply in the future. Now more than ever, there needs to be multinational cooperation and transparency among nations. And, well, good luck with that. The founding fathers probably guessed that the US would form alliances, friendships, and even sign treaties. I believe they underestimated the amount of cooperation among nations that exists today, and what is going to be needed in the future as governments work together to make sure humans remain in charge. There should also be bigger domestic insight on American stockpiles of WMDs, and every other country that possesses weapons like these. Should public funds be allowed to be spent on maintaining these weapons, or should they be dismantled at the people's will despite the threats posed by foreign adversaries? In the past, if you felt that you were struggling, especially with home ownership, the simple answer in this country was, go west, young man. In the beginning days of this republic, most settlers didn't even know what lied west of the Appalachian Mountains. In 2026, virtually every square inch of US territory has been mapped, identified, and allocated out to various public and private entities. There is no virgin land left to be settled and to restart one's life. The post-World War II housing boom was helped in part by the fact that there was just more land available to develop, and that it was easier to make real estate deals with the descendants of settlers. In the 21st century, two big issues regarding who owns land have arisen that have made achieving the American dream of owning a home and land increasingly difficult. Many governments have complex and bureaucratic zoning laws that slow down or make impossible to properly zone that previously mentioned allocated land into residential land. Feudalism and serfdom have been issues in Europe since antiquity, and for my Mexican viewers, a conversation such as this may invoke memories of learning about the fighting over land during the Mexican Revolution. In America, it is a relatively new issue on a national scale. Feudalistic policies and practices like sharecropping did exist regionally, especially in the South, for decades. However, I think this is the first time that all 50 states are experiencing a real estate and housing crisis. An increasingly small number of wealthy elite, foreign entities, and corporations such as BlackRock are owning American land. However, the rights of indigenous tribes should be respected and expanded, and the legitimate concerns of small farm owners should also be considered. Americans in the future will be pressed to answer the question of how both concerns can be balanced. How can the interests of existing landowning groups be respected? What can be done to open up opportunities for prospecting landowners while preventing the consolidation of land ownership and the exploitation of the land and its original inhabitants? If you drive through most major American cities, you will notice massive Roman Colosseum-like stadiums dominating the skylines. Some cities even have two, plus an indoor arena. One may ask themselves, who funds such a grandiose project like this? Well, in the United States, it's sometimes local and state governments, and some of those states and local governments are accused of throwing everything and the kitchen sink at sports clubs to convince them to stay or move to their area. Should there be greater protections for the public and more oversight when it comes to public-private ventures such as these? Many owners have plenty of money and capital to fund their own projects, opponents claim. Other people also complain, why should local and or state governments be asked to foot part of the bill? Because ultimately, it's taxpayer money that these governments are using to secure these deals. Who should have a say in how much money should go to certain projects, and what private projects even deserve public financing? How should public-private deals like this be funded and organized in the future? Americans are living longer than ever, on average roughly 70 years. However, an increase in lifespan hasn't necessarily resulted in an increase in quality of life. Just because more people now more than ever are reaching 80 years old, that doesn't mean that they are performing physically or cognitively like they were when they were 50. The performance of people within the labor force or in positions of power as they live into their golden years has come under more scrutiny. What could be hidden in the past is now harder to conceal from the public. What could be brushed aside as a gaffe by a younger person is questioned as a medical issue when an older person makes the same mistake. The average age in the Senate is 64 years old. I think the most pertinent case as of the making of this video is Mitch McConnell, who's in his 80s and he has been in the hospital some 50-something days. He hasn't really had a chance to vote on the Senate floor. There is a lot of questions about his actual medical state, but then there are the small group of McConnell supporters that point out that he does have a right to privacy. But I guess the big debate is, does that right to privacy extend to public officials in important positions such as these? Should it be all politicians that work in government positions at all levels be exempt from a right to privacy, or just people in the most highest important positions like president and leader of the Senate and or senior member of the Senate? I think that's up to Americans in the future to decide that question and decide it soon. Since 2017, the US has had a president that is over 70 years of age. Being president of a country of 350 million people and being responsible for making decisions that affect global alliances, commerce, and governance is a heavy responsibility, even for a person at peak physical age, much less for someone who is older. Americans will need to ask themselves, both as individuals and as a society, when is it time to let go of power and hand the reins off to someone else? Several other professions have age limits in their careers. Airline pilots have to retire after 65. There is a reason why there aren't a lot of 80-year-old brain surgeons. The majority of people at that age simply aren't up for the task. Should there be an age requirement on who can serve as president? Or is leaving that question up to the American electorate sufficient to ensure that the most qualified people are in charge in this country? In previous videos, I mentioned the debate in American society around how should the cost of healthcare should be covered in the future, as well as how some of the medical advancements that we may see will affect and improve lives. I just want to cover some other issues that will need to be resolved in the coming years. Did you know that the Constitution has no mentions of the words health, healthcare, medicine, or medical care? This is a glaring example that medicine was a subject that none of the drafters of the Constitution thought to include into our lot of the land. I think that there is a big misconception among the public, especially on the right, that since there is no mention of these subjects in the Constitution, that means there should be no role that the government takes in regard to medicine. I personally disagree. I think the government should have a bigger role in providing health care and ensuring that the public operates in a safe and healthy environment. The government's role in medicine would be much more expansive than what America's freedom fighters could have imagined, even in a country where many outsiders question why there isn't a bigger government role in healthcare. One of the biggest sources of consternation is the debate between vaccine advocates and anti-vaxxers. In a country of 350 million people who are traveling daily and who have varying degrees of health, the stakes are high for what could go wrong. People could die, or a pandemic may even be started. Should the personal freedom of individuals and the Constitution's right for competent individuals to refuse treatment be prioritized, or should the health and safety of the country be given precedent? During the coronavirus pandemic, there was confusion over how the different levels of government should respond to the outbreak. There was a patchwork of 50 different responses to the pandemic, and there were even differences within each state. For future pandemics, because they are going to happen, we need to come together and create a better game plan for how to help the country and our society move through and past any future pandemics. In times that our country gets attacked, ultimately it's the civilian government that has the final say when it comes to military affairs. Military leaders don't get to make decisions that impact the lives of daily Americans. So during a pandemic, should public health officials have the authority to issue public orders that are legally binding and should be followed? As America encounters new pathogens that pose a possible threat in the future, a new strategy needs to take shape that codifies and solidifies a national response if need be, creates a solid pandemic response command structure, prioritizes science, while respecting people's right to live in a free society. New laws regarding genetic research and treatment will revisit what already exists, which is little to nothing. Technologies like CRISPR and AI will only make genetic modifications more of a possibility. Being able to manipulate the building blocks for our bodies was a concept that the Founding Fathers thought would only belong to deities. Laws need to be updated that will permit groundbreaking and life-saving research and treatment while respecting everyone's privacy. Just as the Founding Fathers wrote the Fourth Amendment centuries ago to promote the protection of individuals' personal information and confidential material, Americans need new laws that will protect their genetic and biological information and material. Avoid exploitation by opportunistic and greedy medical corporations, or any corporations. If companies can freely collect information on the ingredients that make us, basically, that is dangerous. Americans now more than ever own devices that collect their biological data. While that is amazing scientifically, it also once again raises privacy concerns around our health. While we don't want the government collecting our data like that, the government should step in to ensure that we are secure in our possessions, both materialistic and biological. In the future, the government will have a bigger role in providing healthcare universally, while also having the dual mandate of protecting individual privacy from the prying eyes of corporations. Anyway, I thought I'd finish some thoughts that I had during my first video on this subject. Thank you for watching this video. Feel free to leave any opinions that you may have, and don't forget to like and subscribe.